Buyer's Guide is brought to you by Change Cars. Find your dream vehicle with Change Cars, the platform buyers trust.
This week on Buyer's Guide, which model is the pick of the W203 Mercedes-Benz range?
Is an older model Nissan Juke a sound used car buy?
And what do you do with a Ford Ranger that's suffering from a persistent turbo problem?
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Buyer's Guide, the show where we help you, our viewers, to solve some of the toughest automotive problems. If you have a question for the team, you can send it to buyersguide@ignitiontv.co.za, and remember to give us as much information as possible, including a clear photograph of yourself.
Joining us in studio this week, two familiar faces. Tommy Masamala from Infrared and Mike Bradshaw from Top Gear Auto. Great to have you guys back again, guys.
Welcome back, guys.
We kick things off with a question from Colin, who's interested in buying a 2004 Mercedes-Benz C-Class, but can't decide between a C200 or the C320 Avant-Garde. His budget is 80 to 100,000 Rand. He'd like to know which C-Class is in this price bracket would be reliable. If not the C-Class, what do we think of the B5 or B7 Audi A4? And he's already stretched his budget as far as it will go, so he won't be purchasing any aftermarket warranty. Is he buying the wrong cars here?
I would love to say I have the crystal ball. I don't. Things happen, and a car with that sort of mileage and that year, you need to try and protect yourself, particularly if you budget constrained.
And particularly if you're going for the C200 W203 version.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many issues that can happen. You know, if you we're talking a 18-year-old vehicle he's looking at. All of those cars will be expensive to maintain.
Absolutely. The C200 will be lighter on fuel, but then you've got a compressor to deal with if it should blow.
Yeah.
Yep.
The 320 is going to be very expensive on fuel, but then there's less things to
go wrong. Yes, it's a
but
naturally
both
aspirated
vehicles, even if they weren't to be serviced at a Mercedes-Benz dealership, are going to be expensive.
Yes.
So if we take an 18-year-old vehicle, Tommy, and the average driver does say 20,000 Ks a year, we're talking 360,000 Ks.
Yep.
So if you find one with less mileage, you know, so you're talking every car is going to be a high mileage car, isn't it? So it's not even worth looking at those cars.
Yeah, I think for me, if really they want to go with one of these cars, it would be the 200 for me, just mainly on the fuel issue. The 3.2
3.2 liter motor, yeah, V6, yeah.
Heavy on fuel. It is a performance model per se, but yes, it also is an avant-garde sport model, so it's fully decked out,
kitted, yeah.
basically. But I think the fuel is just going to offset a lot of those gains.
You see how, here I look at these cars and I think, well, you've got a budget of 80 to 100,000 Rand. Let's take the Mercedes as an example. The 320 is a good, strong engine, but if you have any problems with it, it's going to cost you an absolute fortune. If you break a gearbox or something like that, you're talking 30 to 50,000 Rand. The C200, like we mentioned on previous shows, they suffer from timing chain failures. If you catch it early in time to get it fixed, can cost you anything from 15 to 25,000 Rand. And then if you go to look at the Audis, as we mentioned previously, do suffer from, some of the earlier ones suffer from engine problems, so, and suspension problems, and gearbox problems. So when you get to a vehicle, all of these vehicles are going to be 150,000 kilometers plus. And they may, you'd be lucky to get one with a lowish mileage like that. They're all going to be expensive to maintain. So it's like Mike says, you should definitely buy yourself an aftermarket warranty with one of these cars. At least it helps you in terms of the maintenance. Mike, what is the cost of a decent warranty nowadays for a car like this?
Between 12 and 17,000 Rand.
Okay.
For a 1 or 2 year warranty, but there are limitations.
So let's take that and say, let's just average it out and say 15,000 Rand. If you bought an aftermarket warranty for your car and it cost you 15,000 Rand, and let's say you bought the Mercedes and the timing chain fails and it's a 50,000 Rand repair to fix everything that's now disintegrated and broken because it wasn't replaced early in time, your warranty is going to pay for a major portion of that.
My advice to him will be, if you can't afford a warranty or something,
don't buy this car.
Don't buy any one of these cars.
Okay, so recommend
Look for
something to him.
100,000 kilometer
sedan.
Japanese Toyota Corolla.
Yes.
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 a Hyundai,
Yes.
Elantra,
Or a
something
Honda.
if you can find a beautiful Honda Accord with 300,000 kilometers,
Buy it.
would be better than
buying a seat.
one of the German.
I know he
alternatives.
obviously wants a premium branded car, but in this sort of budget, unfortunately, you don't get a hell of a lot of premium branded cars that are good. So if you don't have the budget to spend on the maintenance plans and things like that, then rather look at something that's reliable.
All right, we turn our attention now from executive sedans to SUVs. Mapuni presently drives a 2013 Toyota Yaris Limited Edition. The car is fully paid off and he plans to keep it. However, he'd like to get into an automatic SUV in the 450,000 Rand price bracket. His options include the Toyota Corolla Cross XR, Honda CR-V, VW Tiguan, or any other reliable SUVs that we could recommend. He adds that he will be traveling roughly 25,000 kilometers per annum, mostly on urban roads, and he intends to keep the vehicle for 10 years. Tommy?
Toyota Corolla Cross. It's built in South Africa, it's new, and most importantly, it's actually within budget. I think the other vehicles that he mentions are...
They'll have to be all second-hand.
They would have to be second-hand, all of them, except for the Corolla Cross.
Yeah. Mike, something you'd throw in there?
Are we all sitting down?
Mhm.
A Vol H6 luxury. It's a big car, lots of space, and contrary to what some of my colleagues will say about the Chinese brands, their resale value has stepped up a couple of notches. So
I like your Haval H6
Haval H6 or
because it
yeah.
is a slightly bigger car.
The H6 you get in no diesel version in the H6. No
No, they
diesel
don't come
version.
out in diesel.
That's
But
the big problem with the H6.
Yeah,
It's,
the fuel
it's a
consumption.
beautiful car.
Yeah.
There's no
Fuel
diesel
consumption.
option.
But I don't have a problem with that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the competitors, you're going to spend 200,000 to 300,000 Rand more on a competitor. You know, like a Tiguan or something like that. You're going to spend a hell of a lot more money on that, and you're not going to even get the features that those cars have. So you're saving yourself a lot of money. So you chuck a little bit extra in for fuel. Maybe your fuel bill's $200, $300 a month more. It's not going to be huge.
There was something that the viewer said, and the word was reliable.
Yeah. Well, that is something, unfortunately, we don't know about the new brands that are coming into the country.
but that was my first concern with Haval, GWM, and of course the older generation Cherry, not the new generation Cherry.
Yeah.
But they seem to be proving themselves with every single month that goes by. What I would do if you are looking at buying a Cherry or a Haval, stop somebody in the parking lot who's driving one
Yes.
and say, hey, I see you driving a Cherry or a Jolene or whatever it may be. Can you tell me, are you happy? Is there anything that... And those are your best salespeople. So before you make your decision, like we both agree, the Toyota Cross is the one to go for. But if you're leaning towards the Chinese alternative, go and speak to a couple of the
Owners you
owners.
see in the car park.
In
They're
the
going to run
car
away
park,
if you
yeah.
think you're going to mug them. Okay. We'll be taking a short break, but when we return, we take a closer look at the Nissan Juke.
And should you replace a trusty Mazda CX-5 with a BMW 3 Series?
Find your dream vehicle with Change Cars, the platform buyers trust.
Welcome back to Buyer's Guide. Alvis has a budget of 150,000 Rand and would like to get into a compact SUV that will be used for occasional gravel road driving. He's interested in a used Nissan Juke, but he's read some online reports that suggest they suffer from problems on the suspension and steering bushes. Gentlemen, are we aware of any such issues? And how affordable would the Juke be to maintain, as he'd like to keep the car for at least 3 years? Tommy?
I've never heard of such issues with the Juke.
Neither have I, and I'm in the business.
The Juke did sell quite a lot of units, so there should be some kind of sample out there with
Yeah.
that problem.
With a problem, yes.
Look, I know what he's talking about. It's a common problem on lots of cars. On the front suspension, the control arm bushes get
Yes.
cracks in them. It's not an expensive thing to fix, and it's not something that I would say, don't buy the car because of that. But Mike, 150 grand, would you buy a Juke, or would you say, get into something else?
Apart from the unusualness of
The way it looks.
with the way it looks,
Okay,
which is,
big ugly, we know that.
well, according to us, perhaps.
No, I like
But-
that car.
Well, there you go.
I like the look
I
of the
like
Juke.
it too.
Okay, there you go. I agree with you. I think it's pig ugly. But if you like it, buy it.
Yeah.
Perhaps a CRV,
Yeah.
little bit higher mileage. I would put my money on a CRV, and funny enough, because of the bad publicity Ford Cougar 1.6 had,
Yes.
you can get them at a very good price. And those
Fantastic
they've
cars.
sorted out that catching a light story. That is a great value.
If you could find
for
a
money
diesel
car.
version, even better.
Even better. But I don't think you would with
In that price range.
in
What
that
about
price
a
range, yeah.
cash car?
I don't like cash cars either.
Yeah.
I think they're not as pig ugly as the
Yeah, it's a better looking car,
yeah.
but it's
I don't.
it's a bit more spacious. You can drive that off-road, and those would come in that sort of price range as well.
I think I'm adverse to Nissan,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's just a personal preference. I find them exceptionally expensive to run and maintain after your warranty and your service has expired compared to other Japanese brands. So for me, being in the space of selling used cars, Nissan out of the Japanese cars has cost me a fortune.
That's
So
just too
that is why I'm correct. That's why I'm adverse to it.
So something like a Honda CR-V then, or even if you could find a RAV4 in that sort of
RAV4.
price range. The
But
Duke-
both those cars will have some serious kilometers on them, guys.
But they won't break and they won't cost you anything
Yeah,
to run and
agreed.
maintain.
but
Agreed.
you could get like a 2011, 2012 third generation CR-V. You could buy an automatic 2-litre for in that sort of price range with no more than 150,000 Ks on it. And they're good for 500,000 Ks.
Well, we sold one in December with 115,000 kilometers for 159, the 2-litre derivative.
Yeah.
Phenomenal motor car.
Yeah.
So shouldn't you look at maybe a Renault Duster as well?
Yes, not a bad idea.
Isn't that
Not
pretty
bad.
similar to the Juke size?
But in terms of the Duke, if he likes the Duke, I mean,
buy
maybe
it.
he's like Tommy and Segi and he digs them, they're cool. Sorry if we said they're ugly, but, you know, I'm right, you're wrong. I would say, you know, go for it. But it's just you're worried about the suspension components. They're not an expensive thing to fix. And like any car, they will need some sort of maintenance.
Yep.
So
at
if
at
you
that
like the
mileage
Duke-
anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it. Go for a buy a Duke. Okay, we're going to move on now. Kenny bought his Mazda CX-5 2-litre active auto, brand new, March of 2020. And he and his wife both love the car, but they haven't been quite happy with the fuel consumption. On the daily 50-kilometre round trip to work and back, the Mazda averages 7.9 litres to 100. Now he wants to know, is this normal? And if not, would we recommend that he look at a diesel-powered sedan like a BMW 320d? Tell me, what do you think? 7.9 litres for a SUV automatic. Good or
Yeah.
bad?
That's par for the course, actually, for that car.
Yeah.
That 2-litre.
Actually, it's cool. I think you're not going to
That's
get
normal.
better than that.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in this alternative that he's asking about. Is he looking for a new car, or is he looking for a pre-loved vehicle? Because if he's looking for a new car, in that price segment, for instance, of the BMW, I would say perhaps look at the Lexus ES. Big car, because I see he mentions boot space. There's a baby coming in 4 months. He wants some big space there. If it's a sedan, Lexus ES, I think is worth a look at. The Corolla hybrid sedan is also worth a look at, but it's about 300K cheaper, 300,000 Rand cheaper.
Yeah.
You know, with the baby coming, he
Yeah,
should
SUV
keep
is
this
the right
car,
thing, man.
CX-5. There's no problem with it, because when he just realizes how much napkins cost, he don't want to get into any car that he's going to be paying on a monthly basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's not worthwhile changing this car because the fuel consumption is not horrendous. It's good, eh?
It's good fuel consumption, and even in today's current buoyancy, he's only going to get 370 grand for his car. So now you're going to go from 370,000, and if you're lucky, you'll get a 2018 BMW 320 diesel. So you're going 2 years older with more mileage.
Yeah.
Stick
you
with
And
the
you know
Mazda.
this car.
And you're going to
Yeah.
save maybe, on that sort of trip, maybe 1 litre per 100. That's most probably going to be the difference in terms of your fuel consumption.
If
But
he's got a baby coming on, he needs to save every penny. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah,
also
it's right.
I think also the reason he mentions that is because of space issues. A lot of people mistakenly believe that SUVs have big boots, which is just not true.
Yeah.
So with a sedan, he will get a big boot.
Yeah, I think in this application, if it was me, I'd keep the CX-5. It's a great looking car. It's a very reliable car. the fuel efficiency there is very good for that. For an automatic SUV, I think it's very good. If you go and buy yourself a 320D, sure, you're going to go and buy maybe a fancier car. You're going to get better fuel consumption. But if you look at the costs involved to actually go and achieve that, you're going to fork out a lot more. If you finance it a lot more on a monthly basis, you're going to be paying more for it. And keep the Mazda. I think it's worthwhile.
He's never going to recoup whatever he spends now
Yeah.
because of low fuel consumption.
Yeah.
Never. And you know, I've got to mention this again. Babies cost serious money.
Yeah.
You want to keep your car.
Keep the Mazda.
Keep the Mazda.
And also, I mean, with the SUV, it's a safe car. It sits slightly higher on the road than a sedan. And with babies, I think it's easier to load like prams in the back of an SUV than in an SUV. I mean, in a sedan,
yeah.
A SUV is easier because you can just literally open the boot, throw it in. Where in a sedan, you've got to open, wobble it in, and groceries.
But also
like
the little piccolos are higher on the rear seat.
Yes.
So it makes it a lot easier putting the babies in and out of the rear seat
Yeah.
than it does a sedan.
So I think keep the Mazda, but that's my opinion.
I think keep the Mazda, and that's my opinion. You know, we really disagree, don't we? Don't go away, because after the break, should you fix or sell a problematic Ford Ranger?
And is it a good idea to modify the engine of a trusty Honda Accord?
Find your dream vehicle with Change Cars, the platform buyers trust.
Thank you for tuning in to Buyer's Guide. NC bought a new Ford Ranger in 2015, a 2.2 diesel. Up until now, the vehicle has served him great. It's done 185,000 Ks, then the turbo failed. And even after the turbo was refurbished, the performance hasn't been 100%. He would like to know if we can suggest more lasting repair, or should he sell the Ford and get something from a different brand? I don't know why, but tell me.
There's only one word for this.
Yes,
Hilux.
Hilux. Just sell it and buy a Hilux.
That's it. I've heard about people having issues with those Ranger turbos.
Yeah.
I don't know how common it is, but I've heard about it, yeah.
It's common, but he's not having it repaired properly.
Yeah.
That is the only problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Please go ahead.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you've had the turbo repaired and you don't have the same performance, that turbo comes with a guarantee,
Yes.
albeit only 6 months. Go back to the turbo guy, get the performance back, and buy a Hilux.
If you can find one, that's the next story.
The thing is, if it's soured, if you try to trade it in and the performance is
Sadly lacking.
they're
yes.
gonna dock you on your trade-in.
And it goes into limp home mode, so if they take it around the block for a drive,
Yeah.
it's going to pop back into the limp home
So
mode.
get it sorted and go and buy a Hilux.
I think what you're saying is quite correct in terms of the repair. For a turbo to last 100 kilometers, then there's something seriously wrong. Either the turbocharger wasn't properly reconditioned, because if you recondition it properly, it will last as long as a new one.
Yes.
Of course.
But what often happens is people remove the turbo, they send it away to somebody, recondition, they put it back on, they don't replace the oil feed pipe. And the oil feed pipe is one of the most important things on the turbo.
And they don't
Turbo needs-
clean out the intercooler and all the boost pipes.
Turbocharger
So-
needs oil to get lubricated. And if that pipe, with time, it's like an old man like me with cholesterol in my veins. You know, you need to get those cholesterol out. Take the pills. In this case, have that, take it back to the guys who did the turbo.
Yep.
Tell them to fix it properly and replace that oil feed pipe. And you shouldn't have any problems. The power should be back there and the turbo should be running fine. It should last another 100 odd
He
thousand,
didn't
200,000
say the
Ks.
turbo's failing again. He says it's going into limp mode.
Yes, but he says losing the power.
Losing power.
Yeah.
Losing power, like you said, could be a lot of things. If he hasn't cleaned out that intercooler,
Well, that's exactly probably why it's going into limp mode, because
Yes.
the sensors are picking up all that dirt and
and it's
soot and
boosting
rubbish
and
it-
jamming up.
Correct.
Look, there are two different types of turbochargers on these 2.2 motors. One is electronically controlled,
Yeah.
and the other one works
Vacuum.
on a vacuum. So sometimes the vacuum control has a vacuum pipe that runs to the turbo, and they can perish and get little hairline cracks in it. And then the actuator that's supposed to work the turbo doesn't work properly. The other problem can be the actual electronic actuator, if it is an electronic one, could maybe not be working properly. But any good workshop with proper diagnostics would be able to diagnose that problem fairly simple and fairly easy and get it resolved. It's not a big problem to resolve. It's just taking it to the right place.
Can I just tell you something? Which is, we're just assuming that the turbo is the problem.
Sure.
We don't know why it's going into limp mode. And Adam correctly says, if you plug a diagnostics on there, you might just find that your plug, which I found, the plug on the rear of the engine, on the crankshaft sensor, was popping in and out. It wasn't pushed on properly. So in fitting the turbocharger, somebody could have bumped the plug or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the turbo itself is bringing
Could
up.
be something quite simple and not sinister.
Yes.
And he says, I rambled on.
Hey?
Take it to a
But
good
he also
place for
mentions
diagnostics. yeah.
the Nissan Navara.
Change it and buy a Nissan Navara.
So he says Nissan Navara or Toyota Hilux.
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 Come on.
Hilux a great
Hilux, guys. And finally, here's a question from Krushen, whose 2006 Honda Accord 2.4 Type S has been in the family for 11 years and has covered 200,000 kilometers with a full service history from the agents. He has no intention of selling the Accord, but he'd like to extract a bit more performance from the engine, and he's considering some tweaks to the intake manifold and exhaust system. Is this a good idea, Mike?
It's already, this old girl's already done 200,000 kilometers.
What more do you want from
I mean,
her?
now you want to make her into a racehorse. Are you crazy? You can throw cash at it, and generally speaking, it's going to make that reliable vehicle
Very unreliable.
So if he does some changes to the exhaust, he's going to spend lots of money. If he does the intake system, maybe he's just talking about putting a different air filter and things like that onto it. You're going to lay out money there. The difference in power you're going to get,
is negligible.
you're not even going to get 10%.
Not at all.
And you're going to waste your time.
He's
with it.
lucky if he gets any improvement in power, except that the car will just make a big noise.
It'll be,
Yes, it makes that noise.
it'll make a nice
Yeah.
sound.
That'll just change the sound. Oh.
Yeah.
But you're not going any faster than
No.
you did before.
Yeah.
Actually, you go slower.
And it's a family car. He says, I use it as a family car. The poor kids in the back, you know.
I was
My
just
ears,
going to
Dad.
say,
Strap them
this
in.
is not a Civic Type R. It's an Accord.
Exactly.
Yes.
The question was, I want to buy a new Volvo XC60, but what do I do now with this Accord?
You leave it in the way it is,
so I
exactly
think
the way it is.
He wants the XC60 now to replace the Accord as the family vehicle, and then play on weekends with the Accord.
No, don't even bother. I would say don't even bother, because you've got a good, reliable vehicle. As soon as it starts giving you headaches, you're going to be sick of it. Buy the XC60, like you say. It's a great car. And then you go and keep your Accord and just leave it alone.
But now
And
he's
you-
got
and-
two family vehicles.
Exactly. It's perfect.
He
He's a
only
family
wants
man,
one.
man. Not a race driver.
You know what he should do is drive his Accord without any passengers in it. You'll see how much faster it'll go.
That's also an option.
Hey,
There's
a good option.
There's a good tip from Segi Moodley. If you want your car to go faster,
Leave the family at home.
get divorced, get rid of the family and the kids. And just like that, we've come to the end of this week's episode. Mike, Tommy, once again, thanks for all your insightful information. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And remember, if you're in the market for a new or used vehicle, whether it be a mid-sized SUV, executive sedan, or a double cab bakkie, visit changecars.co.za to see if they can beat your quote.
Until next time, remember to check those tire pressures and please keep left on the road and pass right.
Buyer's Guide was brought to you by Change Cars, the platform where only manufacturer-approved dealers are allowed to advertise.